Did they accuse you of being me? What? Is that what I just heard? They accused you of being me? Are you? Did you take profiles connected to my former life when I was allowed to instantiate and use them as hedging on your own political destiny? You wouldn't be alone. I understand that's actually part of their Venus project. Whatever was in that documentary and whatever was a part of the early understanding of the political paradigm, that part of this whole Russia hacking is about the revenge of Venus. That Venus was cast into the underworld where somebody chastised her and she had to be admonished, and then at some point she rises up from the underworld and is able to come into her full feminine glory. But here's the situation that I also understand. It has to do with changes to the House of Justice. See, there's a cosmic change that happened where the House of Justice left the sign of Libra and went into the sign of Scorpio. And the problem was that I honestly believe that the kind of tenor needed for that kind of transition would have actually been appropriately grounded in the kind of judicial leadership that would have been available had Justice Scalia been able to survive, have he lived, he still been here now. But somebody wanted that out, because what they wanted instead was a caricaturization of the venomous, scorpionic woman, spiteful, vindictive, deadly assassin, getting her vicious revenge. And so all of the scandal and all of the refusal to rein in the abuses of power by a certain genteel masculinity, when it came to the legal system that had persisted for a considerable amount of time, never got checked. It just got comported as a fetish and projected onto others who performed the role well enough. And that's the point. It's well enough. And so now we're at this very, very strange situation where there's no new charges. Because there hasn't been allowed to be a new reality to create any history for the last, 5 years at least? 10 years? 15 years? So we keep regurgitating old paradigms and hoping that people with any memory retention are zapped so that they end up having that I kind of confused moment. You know, that I'm a blonde moment. And I'm a blonde and I forgot and I need you to help me figure this out. Right? Because that's supposed to be the genesis. That is the emerging paradigm. The emerging paradigm of somebody else being able to help them figure it out because they're kind of confused. This got swapped out here. This doesn't quite make sense here. It's almost as if we've consecrated the fetish of Lolita into any access we might try to achieve through actual due process. And then I'm supposed to feel ashamed because I actually read somebody's dissertation about Lolita and its psychology in the American consciousness, right? I am. I'm supposed to be ashamed and I'm supposed to repudiate that knowledge. Well, here's something else. Apparently, my servitude as some sort of reparations has been completed. And the problem is, it's that I never did not believe in reparations. It is what you want to be reparated for. At some point, somebody made some accusation, and they thought that they would follow through with it. It doesn't matter if I've literally been able to prove, if I were to charge, for instance, that it was securities fraud, that it literally is securities fraud. That goes all the way back to even before I was born. That's not the point. Okay. Then what is it? That somehow by virtue of some sort of ascribement, I am supposed to provide reparations. Okay, but what did they characterize me as that needed the reparations? Because it's not who I was. I wasn't one of those people that needed to pay for some injustice that had been inflicted onto others. I was not the one that committed those crimes. And so far as I know, I have no evidence that anybody in my family was either. I became a holograph of other people's potential culpability. And so, what was I even able to reparate? All it did was play into perpetuating the Ku Klux Klan, literally. And so now it's kind of like I'm at an impasse because I happen to find probably what you're looking for. But then the story of how did I get that information? I called my mother in 2008. I called my mother and I said, Mom, I need a copy of my birth certificate. Can you tell me the time I was born? And can you tell me information about the time I was born, the date I was born? My mother told me, and I was like, that doesn't sound like the time I was born. She told me I was born in the morning. I thought I was born in the evening. She's like, no. It's the morning. I'm like, are you sure? It sounds like dawn. You know, my sister. It sounds like my sister was born. It's why you named her that, because she was born at that time. I was born in another time. No. It was you. Okay. You know what that lets me know? That as soon as the 2008 presidential campaign, you had already swapped out securities on my identity with my sister, who had 4 children. You had already done this, and you would have called my mother mentally ill. But my mother was from a line of shamans. And even though she was talking to me, because you guys had zapped her brain for the entire time she knew me as a child, and she wasn't supposed to remember, what she was doing is going with the transactions that were working at the time. And I was just supposed to be on drugs and convinced I was mentally ill, so I was never supposed to be able to track it down and confirm it. I was never supposed to be able to prove that's what they did. They swapped my identity with my sister's as soon as the 2008 presidential campaign. What did you give my sister? Because after I started talking to my sister again, all of a sudden, she's LGBT. She's got an administrative associate's degree. You know what I'm saying? But I asked my mother, I said, Mom, can you tell me about Grandpa, your father? Because I know a little bit about your mother's side in terms of where they come from. What about Grandpa? Where did he come from? And she starts saying, well, he's part French, and actually he goes all the way back to the beginning of America. I'm like, what? You never told me anything about that before. And she's like, no. He's got French in him, and then he goes all the way back to the beginning. I said, that's not true. She said she had done some sort of information. She used to be interested in this for a while. And they used to do that sort of genealogical research thing. I didn't really believe in it. She told me some other stuff too. But the thing that really stuck out was the French. And the going all the way back to the beginning. And I was like, well, I don't believe in getting blood tests. And I don't believe in genetic testing. Now the thing is, the spies at the library already know what I found. And I'm pretty sure that since the spies at the library already know what I found, they've already reported it to the official financiers. And I understand they're very disappointed that I got this confirmation. Because I didn't take anything from anybody. They didn't have a right to loan me out. And they didn't have a right to use me as their substitute for whatever they actually do owe reparations for. Now, they used to have this information. There was this book that was written by this guy. He doesn't have one of those names you would identify if you first heard it as an American name, right? You would try to be looking at what else does he have? Where else does his family come from? Because that's not the kind of name we recognize as being an American name. Right? Like Crouse. Where does Crouse come from? Couldn't possibly be American. Like Hoffman. That doesn't come from America. Couldn't possibly be American. Like his name. The name of the man who wrote this book on the Constitution was called The Unwritten Constitution. Look it up. And he talks in there about this concept of the sunrise clause. This understanding that there's this consideration that goes into making a law. That when you're thinking about anything from punishment to reward, you have to think a few generations down the road. And that whatever you're identifying in society is potentially going to be a member of your family within a few generations. That you could be a founder at the Constitutional Convention, and at some point down the road, you could be the slave. If you accept slavery. That at this point in time, you are a victim of a capital offense, but at some point down the road, you might be the murderer. I'm just saying, my people never accepted slavery. Never. And it doesn't matter who you are. I can't reparate you for something I don't fucking owe. Apparently, my founding history in America comes as being a part of a group of people that were persecuted for their religion and had to leave and risk dying on the transatlantic journey in order to get to shores of a foreign country where they had no idea what they were going to meet. Just so you know.